Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update, brought to you by AgCarolina Farm Credit. Well, I wanted to start off by showing you the National Hurricane Center's 5-day graphical outlook for tropical weather. We were watching a system that could have developed into something here off the west coast of Africa just a few days ago, but the conditions across the main development region have been less than favorable. We've kind of been discussing this recently. The waters in this area have been cooler than average. We've had higher than average wind shear. It's been very dusty in this area. And in the upper levels of the atmosphere, we've had subsidence, that's sinking motion, and none of that is good for the development of any tropical system. But we must diligently be watching the tropics, and this is why. Basically from Cape Hatteras all the way to Texas, so Gulf of Mexico, Western Atlantic, even in the Caribbean right now, ocean temperatures are plenty warm enough to develop a tropical system. So should some tropical thunderstorms get organized, they're going to be able to easily extract plenty of energy from the ocean water and possibly develop rather rapidly into something that we're going to have to pay attention to. Now, where are we in the season? Well, it's August 27th. We're right here on this white line in this distribution of tropical storms and hurricanes over the last century or so. We can see here that we are just a few weeks away from the peak climatologically in hurricane activity, which is on September 10th. So in each of our updates, we'll be watching the tropics very, very carefully. Now, getting beyond day 5, what are we going to be paying attention to? Well, certainly the Eastern Pacific is going to continue to stay active. You can see each of these regions where the longer range European models picking up on the development of the potential for tropical systems. But look at the Atlantic. We are seeing some activity. And again, what I want to stress here is that the water temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico, in the Caribbean, and all up kind of the East Coast of the United States are plenty warm to develop any system that gets into that area. Now, right now, we got to overcome a few other things, but I need you to know those waters are warm. We will be seeing a transition. See my notes right down here. We will be seeing a transition in the coming days to more weaker kind of upper level subsidence. What I mean by that is that the upper levels of the atmosphere might go back into a rising motion, a divergent motion, which allows for better development of tropical systems, at least as we get into the month of September here, which is what we would expect that time of year. So I'm going to have to pay very, very close attention to that in the coming weeks here. Now, what did we see on Sunday? Well, this is kind of interesting because this kind of gives us our setup for the weather patterns in the coming days here. Now, the dominant factor has been the development of this rather substantially large high-pressure system. Maybe you can see me drawing it here off the coast. That's pumped a lot of moisture up into the Corn Belt. And because of that, we have seen some incredibly hot and humid conditions here in the Corn Belt. But what about getting down into the Carolinas where we've seen some drier air in through this area? You see, that's our concern. We're trying to figure out what is precipitation going to look like in the coming days, because right into parts of South Carolina especially, we haven't gotten much rain at all over the last couple of weeks. And it was thankfully due to a system that came through at the end of last week, which we talked about, that finally brought in some showers and storms here into the Carolinas, actually about a week ago, not last week, but a week ago, that's kept things around there relatively wet. Now, we don't have any large-scale drought moving in, but I'll tell you this, when it comes to supplying moisture to the atmosphere right now, we have to watch two things. It's the position of this high-pressure center. We want it sitting off the coast. We don't want it sitting over North Carolina. And 2, don't forget we can put a lot of moisture into the atmosphere via evapotranspiration. For those corn farmers in North Carolina, remember, every acre of corn is capable of evaporating between 3,000 and 4,000 gallons of water per day into the atmosphere. All right, so that science out of the way, let's talk about what we got in the last 14 days on the left, and over there on the right, this is the last 72 hours. Now, we certainly know that things have been dry for the last 72 hours for a lot of the Atlantic coastal states getting down into the southeast. Very, very dry. But we did have that system coming through about 7 days ago that brought the widely scattered showers and precipitation to parts of North Carolina. Now, south of there, things have been very, very dry. Look at how dry it's been right in through this area. And that's going to be the context of this video. Where are we moving as we get into the month of September in terms of moisture? Okay, there's a lot of wild cards, the biggest of which can be tropical systems. But let's diagnose it, let's figure it out, and here we go. This is our setup right now, and this is a very, very important setup for the Carolinas, because if this sticks, it's going to continue to be hot and humid with only hit or miss showers and thunderstorms, no major organized systems coming through. Now, what are we watching here? Well, come way over to the Pacific. this is a high over low pattern, and that plunges a deep trough out west. And that trough goes just like this. Now, because of the flow of this trough kind of sitting here, I'll draw a line through it. We've got a ridge in the upper level sitting here. Sorry, that's supposed to be an H. And the flow around it is just like this. Now, this is why things have been so unsettled in the Corn Belt over the last several days, because the flow is out of the Gulf of Mexico supplying all that moisture. But that upper level ridge is right now sitting right here over the Carolinas, keeping things suppressed and dry. Now, for things to get wet, we need this thing to slide way back out over here, and we're going to talk about that in the coming forecast. But right now, it's not. This is the flow pattern as everything is kind of set up. But because of that, there's some neat things to kind of point out here. Yeah, we're dealing with quite a bit of heat in the Corn Belt and a lot of flooding and severe weather in the northern plains. Out west, because of the position of that deeper trough, which you just saw, look at this. We've got winter weather advisories in the higher country out here. So I thought you might want to see that. But our big question is precipitation, temperatures down in the southeast. So let's talk about it here. We're going to start in the upper levels first and kind of step our way through to get down to precipitation here in a few moments. Now, you're going to see as I animate through this, we're going to have repeated troughs coming through basically from Idaho and Montana through the northern plains. And overall, we're going to favor upper level ridging across much of the southeast and north and South Carolina. So watch. As we move through the day on Tuesday, getting into Wednesday, you see in general, we're keeping higher heights down here, which means temperatures are going to be in the 90s. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid, but all the action is going to be in the Corn Belt. Now, by the time we get toward the end of the week, we could finally see some relief coming through as that system kind of exits. It might be able to drag a cold front down through parts of the Carolinas, bringing in a more enhanced chance of showers and storms. But look, where do the troughs stay? They stay in the northern tier of the United States and in Canada. So as I animate this entire thing out, what I want you to see is we really don't break down this overall pattern until maybe once we get into the first week of September, when we shove that ridge off the East Coast and more toward the center part of the country. But this is getting pretty far out in the forecast, so to trust that long range of a forecast, well, is not very wise. So let's see what we're looking at in terms of precipitation through the next 60 hours. You see, you can see in this animation that flow pattern, all the actions in the Corn Belt. We're dealing with a ridge at the surface, which is sitting right here. Now, remember, the upper level ridge is sitting over North and South Carolina. The surface high pressure system is just off the coast, and it's going to be bringing in this flow pattern just like this. But you got to remember, there's an upper level ridge sitting on top of this, which is suppressing a lot of the vertical development of clouds. We will be seeing storms popping up in the higher country in the mountains here, but overall it's a drier pattern. Now, it will thunderstorm. There will be hit or miss thunderstorms with this flow pattern here in the next few days, getting us through early in the morning on Wednesday, but it's not a widespread soaker kind of a pattern. And that's really what we're going to hang on to for quite some time. Now, I'm going to play this out at full speed. I want your eyes drawn right here. Because when I play this out, this is the European models every 6 hours showing you the precipitation over that 6-hour time period. Now, what do you see there? Look, you see it just popping up day after day after day. It pops up in the day and shuts down overnight. Pops up in the day and shuts down overnight. That is the diurnal cycle in precipitation we have to watch. Now, as I get you through the week, I started back over here. So now we're on Wednesday, getting into Thursday. There is the potential by Thursday into Thursday night and Friday that we could be dragging a front that might get all the way to the Carolinas, giving a more enhanced chance of precipitation. But after the first couple of days of this week, we're going to be seeing just diurnal convection. Those are day thunderstorms, daily driven thunderstorms across much of the southeast United States, certainly into the Carolinas. So this will be a case of the haves and have-nots. Who gets the rain and who doesn't? It's just going to be the heat of the afternoon with all of the moisture in the air, producing localized thunderstorm events. And that's why when you look at the next 10 days as forecast by the European model and its 51-member ensemble, we, for the most part, see the entirety of the south central and southeast United States dry. Remember, though, we still have flow off of the Gulf of Mexico coming in like this. So we will be seeing hit or miss showers and thunderstorms, but nothing like the organized systems that keep moving through southern Canada, the northern tier of the United States, and right here through the part of the north central part of the Corn Belt getting into the Great Lakes states. Okay, so these are the bigger features I'm watching over the next 10 days or so. Naturally, because of where that ridge is located, we're moving away from the pattern we saw at the beginning of August to this is our temperature pattern. This is a 5-day sliding window showing you temperature anomalies. And what you really see here is we get away from that cooler pattern we've been enjoying now into a pattern where we're just slightly warmer than average most days. Now again, hit or miss showers and thunderstorms, that'll cool off a little bit. You know how that works. But overall, the flow pattern in the upper levels of the atmosphere keeps things relatively drier than average, and they certainly keep things warmer than average. Now, speaking of drier and warmer, this will be the pattern we're going to have to watch out for as we get into fall. Okay, as we get into fall, this map right here tells you what I'll be forecasting for you each week to see if it develops. What is it? It's the mean position of the flow of the jet stream for your 13 driest Septembers on record for North and South Carolina. Now, what does that mean? That means a big plunging trough here over the west and a large ridge that is centered right here. Kind of put it over Atlanta and a little bit farther to the west. That flow pattern blocks the moisture from this section of the country. So if we start to see this pattern developing, and if that thing sticks around for more than, a few days, but instead hangs around for 6-7 days, maybe even a couple of weeks, we're in trouble and we're in the risk, running the risk for developing drought. Now, right now, we don't see it exactly playing out like this. The pattern's a bit more transient, but that's what I'm going to be watching. Okay, so in each forecast video, let's pay close attention together. We'll just keep stretching this out through the month of September as we move toward harvest. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this forecast video. We at AgCarolina, thank you for your attention. Hope you look forward to our next video update coming out next week. Thank you.